What is your definition of high reps? 15 reps? 20 reps? 30, 40, 50 rep sets? What do the studies say about training legs in higher rep ranges? Can you build huge quads and hamstrings with sets of 20 reps to failure? What about other muscle groups besides just legs? High reps for a bigger back? Chest? What about arms? We will discuss this and a lot more on this episode of Between Two Dumbbells.
Legs will respond beautifully to 20, 30 if you're pushing hard enough, 40 or even 50 reps if you've got enough screws loose like I do.
Say Jordan or Dante and saying, increase your strength because with strength will come hypertrophy. Yes and no. It can make for a very deep conversation that we'll have to be careful with.
I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think you might be able to do that once, but if you're truly pushing to failure, I don't think you can do that 20 times in a workout.
I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Marv, a.k.a. The Educated Meathead. Ladies and gentlemen of the audio radiance, you are Between Two Dumbbells.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, that's kind of a new one, right?
Yeah.
You got
a good radio
today?
voice. I do. I'm taking the control of the show today, Skip. Damn it.
All your control. And I'm not fighting you because I know the day you've had.
Yeah. Yeah. Good God.
Do what you want to, Dr. Bob. Just do what you want.
All right. So I posit that legs will respond really well to higher rep ranges than what we typically think of as bodybuilders. So more than the 6 to 12 rep range, I posit that legs will respond beautifully to 20, 30 if you're pushing hard enough, 40 or even 50 reps if you've got enough screws loose like I do, or back in the day I did.
I got some screws loose, but I might not have as many loose as you do.
Correct.
And I'm a big fan of high rep. I mean, I've said it before, some of my best years of training and progress for quads, for hamstrings, you know, even obviously calves. Calves are kind of a no-brainer, but you don't tend to think about that with other body parts. But even, I mean, it could be argued for back. It could be chest. It's a stimulus that you haven't seen before. Or if you don't train with those high reps, it can be a stimulus you haven't seen. Think about it. Rows for 40 or 50 reps. That one's, I'm going off on a tangent here. But really, you know, that's an odd stimulus that not very many people have seen, right?
Yeah. And like, when I typically say high reps, like I immediately think about like Widowmakers. Yes, that is a part of it. And we'll talk about those. And I got proof of my former Widowmaker numbers because those days are long gone, right? So I do have proof because it's going to sound ludicrous. But I'm even 15 to 20. I mean, you do a hard set of 20 on a back squat or a leg press, like your legs will grow. Now, nobody wants to do it because it's cardio torture, right? But you want a novel stimulus, you want to blow up your quads in particular, but hamstrings, right? Like I really enjoyed 20 rep RDLs, brutal, absolutely brutal, going as heavy as possible. So there's a lot there.
Okay, but why would people dismiss it right away? But you mentioned like, oh, it's like cardio. But I think some people may even think that doesn't have the potential for growth, like squatting heavy. Oh boy, are you missing the boat on that one?
Yes, you are. And let's dive down the research first. There's a couple studies I want to bring out, and then we'll just talk about anecdote. And if you've never tried higher rep range, you only do the 6 to 12, man, like Skip and I've been saying, what's the best workout program? It's the one you're not currently doing. You do a period of higher reps, watch what's going to happen with your leg size. And then when you go back to your normal lower rep range, higher load, you'll have a benefit there too, because your your endurance is going to be so much higher. It's going to help you. Yeah.
I'm going to go so far as to say this real quick, because I know we need to get into the studies.
Yeah.
But if you think training heavy and hard in reps from say 6 to 8, or even 8 to 10, arguably 12, if you think that's hard, go to failure up in that range of 15 to 20. And I'm telling you, it becomes a different failure, becomes a psychological failure versus a physical failure because you feel like, man, I think that was it. And then you can get one more. And again, it's mechanics and it's a
Yeah.
lot of nuance there. And we'll get into that.
Yep. Yeah. So on the screen, just a quick reminder. We're talking about rep ranges, but just a reminder, so long as volume's equated for, training to failure and training with reps in reserve on leg presses and extensions have similar hypertrophy outcomes, right? So long as volume is matched. But so just a quick reminder on that, because everybody's arguing it's RIR only or it's failure only. Both camps are right, like we talked about with Dusty. Both camps are right, both camps are wrong. So just a quick reminder on that. But
okay, but is there a difference between the two as far as like, is there more potential? Are the studies showing more potential for growth at failure versus RIR? Because I've heard this too, and there has to be some difference.
So it seems right now, remember studies are limited, but as of right now, so long as volume is equated for and you're actually pushing hard enough, so it's a true 1 to 2 RIR, it's not, the leg press study where they thought they were done and they did 7 more. If it's a true 1 to 2 reps RIR, if volume is equated for, similar hypertrophy.
Okay, and let's be clear on volume is equated for. Just because, again, I'm going to say it like a broken record, I am representative of the viewers because I'm not, well, I don't want to say that I'm not that smart because that's implying that viewers aren't that smart. Point is, dumb it down for me so that I understand 4 sets of 10 being 40 reps. Not everyone wants to stand on stage in a thong, but they might want to look like they do. You might be thinking, this guy is old. How could he possibly get me into my best condition? Teach me how to optimize my training and save me time while doing it. Let's discuss your goals for 2026. 25 years of online coaching, 41 years of training, 35 years of competing. That's a lot of experience and wisdom. Reach out and let's discuss your goals. Same volume as 8 reps for 5 sets. For 2 RIR, I'm just making a comparison.
Yes, correct. So supposedly that'll have the same outcome in studies in very sterile environments that are 8 to 10 weeks long. You and I will both say, if you go to true failure, you're going to do way less volume than if you're doing reps in reserve. You just physically cannot keep the intensity high. People say, oh, I train to failure every single set. I do 20 sets a workout. I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think you might be able to do that once, but if you're truly pushing to failure, I don't think you could do that 20 times in a workout.
Yeah,
I just don't.
I don't either.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yep. And people will say, I'm different, bro. I'm the one, right? Okay. So, and like we've talked about, with our less is more episode, I would challenge you to cut your sets down slightly and get everything out of it. You're going to be so much more dialed in. If you only have 1 or 2 sets for a leg press versus 4, you're going to push so much harder.
Yeah. And we can come back to the intensity because that's
correct.
a big part of the argument anyway.
Yep.
So
Yep. So one study coming up on the screen, it's a meta-analysis. So they did low, moderate, and high loads with rep ranges 6 to 12, 12 to 20, and over 20. And guess what? What I just said, all rep ranges, when volume is matched, so the same number of total poundage, all of them had similar hypertrophy. The only difference is the higher load, lower reps, which is across the board in research, leads to better strength gains than if you're doing higher repetitions, lower load, which makes sense because there's going to be a neural component to that.
I'm making notes.
Yep. Correct. Yep. Love it. Like there's this other study and I'm looking at my notes to make sure I'm doing this right. Again, they did, 6 to 12 reps versus, 15 to 35 reps. Again, the whole body, similar muscle hypertrophy, muscle and fiber levels, regardless of the rep range, as long as the sets were taken close to failure. Once again, higher load, so lower reps, higher loading, better for strength, but we're not strength athletes, right? We're going for the gains. Same amount of muscle. And another one, now we've got to, and I'm bringing this up on purpose because if you're not reading studies, you could misinterpret, because this was one saying, low reps, moderate reps, high reps. Well, their definition of low reps was 4 rep max. Moderate was an 8 rep max. Their higher reps was a 12 rep max. That's what I would not consider 12 reps high.
No, but I
Right.
think the average gym goer
Yes.
probably would be. I
Correct.
can't argue with their divisions there with those 3,
hmm
what'd you say, 4, 8, 12, right?
Yep.
Okay, alright.
Yep. And again, similar hypertrophy, but less strength gains in the higher repetition group, the 12
Mhm.
rep max group. So what's really cool though is the American College of Sports Medicine, says conventional strength training is your 3 to 5 reps, your hypertrophy is the 8 to 12, but then high rep additions, 25 to 35 reps, increases muscle cross-sectional area more than conventional training alone, meaning the 3 to 5 or the 8 to 12. So for advanced people, right, doing a couple reps up to 35 reps, provided the sets are performed close to failure, could actually help with a little bit more hypertrophy in advanced folks, right? You've done everything you can in the 6 to 12 rep range. It's time for a novel stimulus. You start throwing in 25 to 35 rep sets, you can spark new muscle growth. Now, the coolest study that just came out earlier this year was they separated legs on people. So they did leg extensions. One leg was a load progression. So for both legs, so same subjects, there was 37 people, I believe. Yep, 37 untrained adults. So keep that in mind. They did leg extensions. One leg was their load progression. So they did 8 reps and they increased the load every week for 10 weeks. The other leg, they started at 8 reps and they kept the same load, but increased the reps every single week. And they went from 8 reps week 1. Some individuals by the end of the 10-week study were doing 15 reps, which is you're almost doubling your reps in 10 weeks.
Sure,
Like they're
yeah.
untrained, but like they're pushing pretty damn hard. Right. So pretty interesting because then you're literally, it's the same person. Right. So it's not individual genetic, like you could see the difference. So pretty interesting. So 34% had greater hypertrophy with the reps progression. 19% responded better to the load progression. 35% saw no difference. They both grew. And this made me sad. 5 participants were non-responders to both. They chose their parents wrong.
Right, okay, but even though it's sad, it's worth noting.
That's what I'm bringing up on purpose.
It
Some
is.
folks, you pick the wrong straw. It's not your fault. We all know those folks. There's a family member of mine. Unfortunately, he's one of those folks. He worked so hard when I was training people out of my garage. He was coming to me 3 times a week. We tried everything. And I wasn't as educated as I am now. Low reps, high weight, high reps. We tried everything. The dude couldn't put on muscle to save his life.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
that
just,
is
it's a bummer.
indicative of someone. I mean, that really does come down to the genetic potential because you can
Mhm.
say, "Look, okay, I didn't know then what I know now." But if you try 4 or 5 different things, whether you're working with a coach, not working with a coach, you're just doing things logically. You're eating
Mhm.
relatively well. You're training hard, but you're not doing anything ridiculous or absurd, and you're not responding to anything.
Sometimes it's,
I feel
yeah.
real that is sad because if this is your passion, you
Yep.
are really screwed.
And that's why we're like the one sport, and you could say sports in parentheses, where within 6 months of starting, people go, I want to go pro. And I'm like, well, nobody says they want to be a pro NFL offensive lineman if they're not 6'8", 325 pounds. But the second you lift a weight, oh, I'm going to turn pro. I'm like, maybe.
I think there's some disillusion or
Yes.
delusion in
Correct.
younger kids who don't
Yep.
know any better.
hmm
So there is
Yep.
that. But
Yep.
you're right. I mean, you're not
Yeah.
going to all of a sudden you're not going to be 5'2", 160 pounds and have any chance at being an NFL lineman
Correct.
or
And it is what
running
it
back.
is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like pro bodybuilders are the equivalent of 7-footers. Like when you see them in like they're mutant.
Yeah.
They just are. Like Dusty, love the dude. The dude's not human. Now, back to the study with the high reps or the high load. The one interesting difference is the high rep group actually had more satellite cell content. So what the hell is satellite cells? Satellite cells are pretty much muscle stem cells, right? And they're kind of laying dormant in muscle groups. And depending on how you train, it'll actually turn them into real cells by having more nuclei, blah, blah, blah. Their activation as expansion is closely related to hypertrophy. And so the reps progression had a significantly increased increase in satellite cells, which is another reason why, if you've never done high rep ranges, that's a novel way to maybe get some more muscle growth, because you could actually start doing more muscle cells, hyperplasia, right?
And
So,
what if genetically you're predisposed to that and
and
you have
everybody,
no idea?
yeah, because everybody has, what's his name? Transparent, the podcast with Nigel, I think that's his name. He did like genetic testing and he's like, oh, I'm like slow twitch type 1 dominant. All of a sudden I did high rep ranges for my legs based on, my genetic markers, and my legs blew up.
Yeah.
How are you doing? I have not done the genetic stuff. Just, I don't know why. I just haven't. But I will tell you, I'm one of those people because I'm built to be an endurance athlete. Remember, I was 155 pounds at the age of 22 years old at 6 foot when I found the gym. I am built to run for days. I'm super slow, right? I'm not very athletic, but I can just outwork people. So I gravitated. When I started doing Widowmakers, my legs doubled in size, right? I'd always did the 8 to 12. I never did 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 because remember, I'd already had 7 surgeries before I got into the gym, which is pretty sad. So
Right.
I've never not been limited, but I am one of those people. I would bet my entire life savings that if you do my genetic testing, I'm one of those people who's going to respond well to that.
Yeah,
So
I
it
don't
was just
need
a
your
really,
$17 though. So
yeah, I know,
that.
right? Yeah, correct.
Cheap
I
shot.
wish that was more of a cheap shot than what it really is, but we've had some pretty significant financial obligations this past 6 months.
So
But
it might
one of
be
them,
true.
yeah, but one of them is Elsa, which is amazing, which I love my car. I don't love the fact they wanted $1,500 to fix the ignition switch, but anyways, and one more study, because this is going to go against what people would think. So actually, let me ask you this, Skip, would you think lower rep, higher load training would have more or less muscle damage than higher rep, lower load training?
Well, that's what's throwing me. Now, and I keep coming back to, well, they're not trained, so maybe that's a
So totally different study. Totally different study.
Oh, okay.
But just in general, what's going to cause more tissue damage? Heavy 6 to 8 or balls to the wall 25 to 30?
Yeah, I definitely would have thought the lower rep range.
It is. You are correct.
Oh,
but people,
it is. Okay.
Yes. So people would think, well, there's more damage in the lower rep range. People would think the higher would have more. Yeah, it's mechanical tension. Mechanical tension is the main driver of hypertrophy. Yes, you need a certain amount of volume. Now we're getting into more of, hypertrophy research. Go back to the Dorian Yates episode, where I broke down 24 hours of research on my end in like 30 minutes. Pat on the back. But like, it's pretty interesting. So in this group, they did, 3 to 5 reps, 20 to 25 reps. And then they had people come, kind of alternating between this training period. And again, they all had similar in skeletal muscle growth. They had similar increases in growth hormone. There was no changes in mTOR, which is the signal of muscle building. There was less muscle damage markers in the high reps that, we'll get into that. So it's pretty interesting. But what's cool is higher rep stuff might increase mitochondrial density compared to lower rep stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, that's another reason why. So I am grossly simplifying. We don't know for a fact, but I've heard a couple people who I think are pretty smart, and this makes sense to me. With traditional strength training does not decrease mitochondrial content, but it will not have the body create more mitochondria. But things like HIIT cardio and higher rep training can. So that's why I will always say do HIIT cardio at least once a week, even in the off season, for a whole bunch of stuff: blood pressure, gym performance, heart health, now keeping mitochondria. Like, just nobody likes doing HIIT cardio, like we've talked about, but there's another reason why HIIT cardio should be pretty freaking awesome.
I actually like it for what it's worth.
Yep.
Because it's so relatively quick, and you're so focused on the minute by minute that by the time you realize you're shot, you're done. I also like walking away with the pump. The other part that's even more important is it fed my leg training.
Yes.
Like I was hitting PRs at 5 weeks out. I'm like, what is going on? This seems very counterintuitive. But let me come back. I got to ask a couple questions before we go on to the next study.
So no, those are all the studies because I didn't want to bore people, but enough to show you, hey, there's enough stuff backing this up from the research. Now we're going to talk to anecdote experience. So like, try it.
Exactly. So, okay. And I'm thinking this, a couple things that were said, and I have a couple things written down, but I can't go to them right away because they're gold. It can make for a very deep conversation that we'll have to be careful with. But okay, so the higher reps are creating arguably the same response as the heavier load, lower reps. So then the question might be, then why do them? Because they're so brutal. But then you touch on in the one study that you're reaching, like you were talking about satellite cells and different
that's the big thing,
muscle fibers. So as a viewer, I would be thinking to myself, okay, I'm not going to do genetic testing because that's not practical and maybe it's expensive, but it's easy to go into the gym and give yourself 6 weeks of lower or regular rep training and give yourself 6 weeks of the higher rep training. You could even keep the variables the same and use the same exercises. I mean, what better way to prove the difference by keeping those variables constant, and the only thing you're changing is your rep range, and see what happens. That's going to give you a real good idea if you might be or have a preponderance of or more of a specific fast or slow twitch muscle fiber make up for different body parts. And it's important to note that based on the muscle, it can change from muscle to muscle. So there's that. You may then find I respond better to high reps for quads, but I respond better to low reps for hamstrings. It's an example. I'm just making the point that, and, we can know or not know for sure, but we can have a better idea that say calves are predominantly slow twitch because of the makeup, like what the muscle actually does. But in what ratio? Because a muscle is never 100% one fiber type.
Even the soleus, which is close, is probably around 90% off the top of my head. Remember, that's your second heart.
So you're talking about 10% of gains, potential gains that you may be leaving on the table if you're not going specifically or not training specifically for that fiber type. It's substantial.
Fast twitch fiber typing, so type 2 has a better growth potential. But if you're trying to wring the towel out and get every ounce of muscle you can, do it all. Like, I love Jordan Peters where he goes, get strong in all rep ranges, period. Now he does 2 to 4 rep stuff, which I don't think is bodybuilders, but he's also not human. He's super fun to watch, but he was one of the first guys other than Dante. So Dante obviously was the first with Widowmakers, which we'll talk about in a sec, but Jordan Peters was another guy of like, hey, if you're not doing the 20 to 30 rep range mark, you're missing out on gains, a ton of them. Like, nobody likes doing them, right? Even, there was a period of time I liked doing Widowmakers, and then the anxiety just got to be so great. We'll talk about that in a sec, which is good and bad. But you're leaving stuff on and think about like how much better your cardio is going to be.
Good point.
Which is going to help everything else in you're doing. And you're going to live longer because guess what? Your VO2 max is directly tied to how long you live. It's a better predictor of how long you're going to live than blood pressure.
I like that.
Period.
That's a big takeaway. I also think that it's not necessarily a bad thing. I want to be very clear on this. Even though I am a big proponent for higher reps for legs, I'm not against, say, Jordan coming at it or Dante and saying, increase your strength because with strength will come hypertrophy. Yes and no. They're not married, but if you're in bodybuilding rep ranges and you're getting stronger, you have to be growing from a hypertrophy standpoint. You have to be. My only take from that, or my only opinion that might seem counter to that, is I don't like that that's the only way to get big. The beating the logbook and everything. It's a great way, but it is not the only way. I'll go back a little bit. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but I do want to make the point and I stand by this. I've said this for a while. I'm going to say it again now. I don't know. I'm not convinced that the body knows reps. I think reps are our way of timing the mechanical tension. Timing, it's basically putting a measure on mechanical tension. So here's an example. If you do a relatively moderate pace 12 reps, or you were to do literally cut the time in half and do 6, and I'm using these numbers to be specific because they're half. Okay, so they're arbitrary numbers to make my point. It could be 20 and 10, it could be 14 and 7. But my point is if you're doubling the time under tension, but you're doing half the amount of reps, I don't think that matters. I don't. I think that the reps are simply a measure. And that's why I don't like the measure. I am far more a fan of time under tension than I am truly counting the reps. But I accept that it's a way for people to measure, because if you can keep that consistent pace with your reps, you have your own pace. If everybody's is kind of individual, unless you're just purposely making them a specific amount of time, like a metronome or something. There's got to be somebody out there who does that, right?
What a lunatic.
But controlled variable at the same time. So where I wouldn't do it, I can't argue why, against why you do it. I get why you do it. It just doesn't seem like fun. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, that is something else that is a constant variable. I get it. So my point is people need to understand this is incredibly nuanced. So you have to take the studies, you have to take how you're responding and understand that nuance, that this is not a black and white. It's just not that simple. So people will say, oh, just grab it and go in there and kill it. And that sounds really alpha and awesome. But if you're going to do this for a long time and you're trying to optimize and make your training as efficient as possible, that thought of going, oh, just grab it, go in there and clang and bang, that's just wow.
So let me just try to simplify it as much as possible. Muscles primarily grow through mechanical tension. Now, mechanical tension implies progressive overload because that is the GOAT in terms of what causes growth. But we've talked about you could create progressive overload not just through increased reps or increased load. So you have passive mechanical tension during the lengthened or the eccentric. You have active mechanical tension, and the lengthen eccentric is something in the muscle called tighten is elongating, and that's going to create tension on the muscle fibers. Then when you're doing the concentric, you have the actin, myosin cross bridging. That's going to create active tension in it, right? So all mechanical tension is the pulling force being experienced by the muscle cells. Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses. And so once again, so long as you get effective reps, which is Borge Fagerly's, and then Chris Beardsley also adopted it, model of, you're within 5 reps of actual failure, right? Because how the muscles work is motor unit recruitment. We recruit small motor units. Motor units is what supplies a bundle of muscle fibers, because muscle has an all or nothing contraction principle. Either it contracts all the way or not. So think about it. If I went to do my major large motor units right away, I would not be able to control this. I would smack myself in the face. So it starts small and it goes large. The high rep stuff has less load, so less mechanical tension. But as you extend the set and time under tension goes up, and then metabolic waste products are starting to build up, that's going to start telling the body to recruit more larger motor units, right? And then last thing, because I know I'm going down the weeds, I'm trying to simplify a lot of hypertrophy research. How do you know you're in the effective reps? We've talked about this, something called the force velocity curve. When the concentric, the positive, starts to involuntarily slow down, that is a signal your muscles are experiencing a ton of mechanical tension that is going to be productive for muscle growth. That is tons of data, try to be simplified as quickly as possible. Did that make sense? That's off the top of my head.
Yeah, and it absolutely does.
Okay.
But it brings me to this question. I don't want to say it's a golden question, but I do think it's important.
What, Skip? What is it's recency bias or something? We were corrected in the YouTube comments.
I don't know. I'm corrected so often that I can't remember all of it.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. I don't get corrected very often. I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe people just think I'm so far gone, they're not even going to attempt.
Well, I was talking about at home too, but anyway, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another thing that some of the viewers may be thinking, because I've thought about it. But I will go on record and say, and I want to talk about this next, and that is the results that we have both gotten and that we have seen from clients with the higher rep training, because it and what that means and what that all looks like. But I'll say this. If you're going to do a set, I don't go over 20. I mean, on occasion I will if I'm close to failure and I'm not there yet and I can get, there's still 2 or 3 left in the tank. I'll do that. But I'm not ever going into a set going, I'm going to get 25, I'm going to get 30. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that's just me. And all my 41 years of training, I haven't done that, but maybe a handful of times. I did do, because it was back in my time, the Tom Platz 50 rep squat challenge.
Nice. Love it.
And for what it's worth, I do have a friend who was very passionate about bodybuilding when we were teenagers. And he did squat at 16 years old. I was 15, he was 16, 225. And there was no video or anything at that time. We're talking about 1986. At least there wasn't, it looked like a TV camera, so I couldn't afford that kind of stuff at that time. Anyway, the entire gym stopped as he got in because it was clearly loud. Come on. So it was his one and only working set for the day. Actually, he planned on 2, but the second one wasn't going to happen. And that was when you backed out away from the squat rack. It wasn't like there were no safety racks or anything else. Okay. So he did 50 reps with 225, and he was done, in my opinion, at 44. Yeah. But he stood there and you could, these days he would post it online and somebody would be like, oh, that's way too long in between reps. Just because that's how society is now. But the whole gym was screaming at him. And understand, we're kids. They're yelling, some big dudes yelling at him. You got this shit, that type of thing. That on video looks like it's all just cheesy. But to us, that's a big deal because we're not performing. He wasn't performing for anybody. He may not have heard a thing. I don't know. But I knew he was done when he went to take a step forward.
Oh, he fell.
And it was so ugly. It was so ugly that, I thought his neck was broke, everything. And I grabbed him and I was able to twist and pull him out as the bar came down. But I myself up, he fell on me. It was just, it was really ugly. But it was to cheers and all that. It was just a really cool thing.
You
totally a side story.
No,
but,
you totally took the wind out of my sails because I was about to brag of what I used to do for widows, and now it's not that impressive.
And that's at 16 years old, and he was known for his legs, that type of thing. But nonetheless, and natural for what it's worth.
So damn. Well, I still think what I did was pretty impressive because remember, I have no meniscus in my knee, so I've had knee issues from the first day I stepped in the gym. So here's hack squat footage. The first time I ever did widows with my friend. It was me, him, and his now wife. She might be pro now. He's knocking on the door. We did B stance, Smith squats, muscle round, which is just terrible in every sense of the word. And then we did widows on the hack. His woman went first and she did 47 reps.
Oh, impressive.
Yep. So, we were not expecting that and we couldn't be shown up by her. So he hit 47 reps at 4 plates aside that you'll see. And then he got a panic inducing cluster headache to where you could see him struggling because we were teasing each other because he killed me on the B stance. Then I went, and this is 2020, so I maybe weighed 200 pounds, and I failed on rep 47 at 3 3/4 plates. And then I remember we went to a movie that night, and when we stood up at the end, all 3 of us, our quads cramped.
I don't doubt.
Yep. And then no video proof, but here's text message proof. My best ever Smith squat was 275 for 54 reps. and the stars aligned. That's when I was in Cairo school. My fiance lived 500 miles away. I had a lot of frustration to take out, as you could obviously imagine. And that is my all-time best. I was trying to talk with another training partner because we used to go to war on the belt squat. We couldn't remember, but we're like, yeah, we were hitting 50 plus reps on widows. And yeah, the gym would stop and we would walk in and it would be like, oh, they're here. Like, so it was pretty cool. Right. But I wasn't 16, so that just makes me not feel as cool as I thought I
Hey,
was gonna
I
feel.
didn't do it.
Yep.
I mean, I did it, but I didn't do
Yeah.
it with 225
Yep.
and I didn't get to 50. So there's
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I
But,
told that story about him instead of mine. It was far more impressive.
yeah. Yep. But to this day, that workout in a classmate's garage during Cairo school when I did the 275 for 54, probably my favorite workout ever, other than with my buddy. The guy whose house we went to, real quick story, then we'll keep going, because this is damn impressive. I have to tap into some pretty dark stuff to do those numbers. So that's why I just mentally exhausted. He did the same. It was his first ever DC workout with my training partner and I, the guy's house we're at. So we're yelling at him and he had like 25 reps or something in and he was going to rack it and I let him have it and he flipped the switch and then he started sobbing because he tapped into something dark and then he did like 15 to 20 more reps with just not ever. And I was like, that's like the most impressive thing I've ever seen. So
see, I don't have anything dark to pull from. I know that sounds very like denial.
That's good. It's not good that I have so much dark shit to pull from. Like if people, like I said, if people heard my thoughts, I would be what's the word? I would be put in a lockdown facility immediately, right?
Right,
so
institutionalized. Yeah.
Yep. So I loved Widows. Widows, DC, like I've talked about, is my favorite training program of all time. It blew my legs up. I did Widowmakers for 3.5 years straight, and I can't do it anymore. Just the mental
I can
stuff,
go there
I just
with the
can't.
challenge. Like I can as a personal challenge, but I can't draw on anything. I was raised by the cleavers. I don't have anything, negative or anything to pull from it for that is emotionally painful. But here's my question that I was going to get to earlier, and I got sidetracked with my own story. I apologize for that.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so with this high rep set, it can be argued that the first reps are easy. So why do them? You did explain why, because as they start to fatigue, then the other motor units, they take over, and that you're getting to that level when the motion slows down or the reps slow down. But still, there's still that argument of, okay, what if we did it this way? What if we figure, and I've tried this, what if we say, okay, we're going to do 20 reps. It'll be a Widowmaker, but I'm going to start heavy and I'm going to go, say, the equivalent of what would be down the rack. So I'm going to start and I'm only going to be able to get 6 or 7 reps. I'm not going to rest. Let's say we're on a hack squat just for the sake of argument. And I've got you on one side and I've got Chris on the other. And I barely make the 7th rep. And, you yell, pull, you pull a plate. I get another 4 to 5 reps. I mean, there's not, it can be argued you stop for a minute. Okay, you don't stop for a minute. You're stopping for maybe the 10 seconds to pull it off. Okay. You keep going. You get to 20 reps that way, where mechanical tension is a lot higher for the duration, time under tension, higher reps if we want to count reps. Why would that not be the go-to? Or would that why wouldn't that be better than just doing a constant weight for the higher reps?
So we know that, again, with the limitations, this is from the top of my head, drop sets do not add any additional muscle growth in the study. Same with forced reps, same with cluster sets, according to the data on the people they're using. I disagree with that. I personally just don't like drop sets. I used to do strip sets on the leg press like you talked about. But I've just not been a fan.
And I'm talking about not rest pause.
Correct. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
Not getting off
so
the
you're
machine.
keeping it going. Yeah. So you're just doing a really brutal drop set, which you could do that. There's multiple ways to do it.
I just find it difficult to believe that is not more intense, even though the stuff, you know, like you said, because it's true. The studies
Well,
don't
yeah,
back up.
because then mechanical tension would technically be reducing because less loads on the muscle. But if you're extending the set, like that's when it gets such a gray area.
But it's inverted. There's a
Yes,
Top Gun
correct.
reference for it. I mean, because there's
Yeah.
less mechanical tension at the beginning of the set of a 20 rep
Correct.
set when it's
So
a
it's
constant
two different
weight.
ways. Yep. So 2 different ways to do it. So if listeners are brave enough, how about you do 1 month of continuous high rep stuff and let us know, and do 1 month of what Skip just said, and then see what you responded better to.
Here's my only argument against it. It could end up getting you or putting you in an overtrained state very, very quickly from a CNS standpoint. It could literally zap your system enough that, okay, your body's like, literally, what the f is going on?
Yep. And for everybody, because I know, and I'm going to make fun of people being judgmental. I know, and it's awesome people in the gym, but what is all the current broccoli head 160-pound soaking wet guys are saying? If I go over 6 to 8 reps, I'm going to have calcium ion dysfunction because of somebody's talking about that.
Is that a thing for real?
Blah, blah. Yes.
Wow.
They have corrected me that I am training wrong and that I only need to do the 6 to 8 rep range, and I only need to do 1 or 2 working sets, period, because otherwise, apparently, calcium is going to nuke my muscle and I will never grow.
You've been corrected for real?
Yes. Yeah.
You must just look nicer than me in the gym, and I'm a pretty nice guy.
No,
like,
no,
I
this
talk
is
to
online.
people.
This is online. Hell
Okay,
no.
'cause I'm
Nobody
like
talks to me in the gym.
I'm like, no one
I literally have shirts made that say, "This is real." In between my sets, talk to me. I promise I'm nice, because we know I have RBF pretty bad. Like, we've all seen it on the podcast. Resting
Oh,
face.
yeah, okay. I'm like, what what's that? Okay.
So I have it, especially in the gym, especially when I'm locked in, because I am progressive overload in the target muscle, like we've talked about a million times. I'm not just move the weight by any means necessary. I will say that 54 rep squat by the end, I was not flexing my quads as hard as possible. I'll just be honest.
Right? I had, and I want to be clear on this just from a DC standpoint, because I did. I trained DCs exclusively. My version of it for about 3 years in the early to mid 2000s. And it was kind of, it wasn't during my peak competition days, but I was competing consistently at that time in Colorado. And I arguably made my best gains in that same amount of time. So if like what I'm saying is this, if you take another 3-year group of like 3 years of training, I don't think I grew as much as I did in that time. So and what's kind of funny is I was training, it's not funny, but I was training fasted at that time because I had to, based on I had a regular job and, you know, raising three kids. 3 of our 4 kids were very young at that time. In fact, I took them to the gym with me to take them into the daycare. So there were times where I'd be squatting and I would get that call, you know, Mr. Hill, you need to come to the daycare, and I have to change a diaper and throw them up in the air and go right back into the squat rack. But the point is I made my best gains at that time, or arguably my best gains at that time. And what stands out the most is I made gains all over, you know, from shoulders to back, but I was blown away at how effective the high reps were for legs, because it started as a widowmaker, but then I saw the progress and I thought, I just don't even care to mess with the lower reps very much. So it became a more of a common thing where I would do 2 or 3 sets, 2 or 3 exercises, and each of them would end. I'd work up to that weight where I was going to challenge that 20 rep. And I mean, I could get 19 and a half and was just livid that I didn't get the last one.
Yeah. Yep.
So from a psychological, and this is what I said, I feel like at that point, there's such a fine line between psychological failure and physical failure.
Yeah.
Because it can look like physical failure, but did you really just subconsciously want out of it? Very easy to justify, even if you're there with a couple other people that you're training. They're not going to know. Okay, so
yeah, I think maybe 3 or 4 times I found true failure on a widow, and those numbers I said were those. Yeah.
Because I mean, you're going crazy. You're arguably, like you had said, some people are tapping emotional luggage to get there. And yet, and this is why I've always referred to it in my circumstances, controlled chaos. I don't want total insanity in my brain because I don't want to ever put aside the mechanics just to get the reps. So that's the control part. The chaotic part of the chaos is I don't care what happens to me as long as my mechanics are tight. I'm limiting the variables in the risk, but I know there's still a risk. And that's the only thing that has changed in my later years, because I've been training for 41 years and I'm 55. That, and clearly I'm limited with legs. I can't free bar squat because of herniating the same disc 9 times. They're just things that I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I won't, that risk is not something that even if I were able to squat, that I would go to that same place. But in those exercises that I am able to use, and no, for the troll that's listening going, oh, he goes to failure on extensions, he's so hardcore. No, that's not the case. I can still do hacks, but I'm not going to do leg presses and I'm not going to squat, free bar, free weight squat. It is belt squats.
Yeah.
It is hack squats. It's pendulum. You say pendulum, I say pendulum. You say cool whip, I say cool whip. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So there's still that level of failure, but it is a much, I call it smarter. But that doesn't, but I don't want to imply that I wasn't smart when I was younger. It's just that I was more willing to go there when I was younger, because anybody listening, if you're going to judge, I would just ask you this simple question. How many times would it take for you to have to get up in the morning because you have a disc that is herniated and you had to shit in your shower? It's a very humbling, because you can't sit on the toilet, because if you sit on the toilet, your lower back will spasm and you're stuck there for 3.5 hours on the toilet. So please don't come at me like I'm not willing to go there, because I would argue that, or I would argue that you haven't even been where I've been. So don't come at me unless you have been there, or at least close.
What blows my mind is Hadi. Hadi does the strip sets on free barbell squats like weeks out from the Olympia. What? At his level, the risks he takes in the gym, it's impressive.
Does he have a history though of
see, I don't think he does. I don't know. I don't think he does.
I don't think he does.
Remarkable, right? Remember, they have genetic predispositions to injury prevention that we don't have, right?
But is that any different than like the NFL or anything? I know I have said, and I've heard it said time and time again, NFL, IHL, MLB, you name it. There are people who have had the talent to go to that level, but their body hasn't been able to endure what it takes to get to that level. So you have the talent, but you don't have a body that is able to endure what it takes to get there. And I would argue that Hadi is a person that can endure that, because if he had lower back injuries or he had those things that would beat up on, he would then make those changes for longevity purposes. And he hasn't had to do that. Stan Efforting, who can train that heavy, that long? Only people with tendons that are like steel cables, on a suspension bridge.
Remember, Derek Lunsford tore his chest 4 weeks out of the Olympia this year, and he said he was ready to train it like normal in 2 weeks. What? Hell no.
Yeah,
that defies physiology in my mind, because he posted the picture with him. It was black and blue. It wasn't a little niggle where a couple fibers you got a little. No. He was bruised up, like incredible. But
we can talk about those things.
Yes,
but arguably, it's a waste of time. And I'm not giving you a hard time for bringing it up.
No.
Because, but
correct.
The rest of us mere mortals, are never going to experience that. So things like that, I just look at it and go, I don't even want to spend the time talking about how great someone else's position is over mine. I just have to focus on mine because it's the hand I'm dealt.
And I even like 20 reps on adductors, even though we've talked about turn up legs and blah, blah, blah. You start a leg day with a heavy, use a gym pin, 20 rep set on adductors, your legs are going to get bigger.
Now, before we go on, let's at least spend a couple minutes on the fact that I do think that this relates not just to legs. I know we're focused on legs, but look, I mean, whether it's back, whether it's chest. I know there's a pretty good argument. I don't think that it's terribly uncommon to do high rep sets of, say, side laterals. I think we've all done things like that. But what about barbell rowing?
As an educated meathead, I want to be doing everything I can to recover from each training session. Rapid reboot compression therapy is one of the tools in my tool belt that I not only use in just my office, but myself after every single leg session, and it really makes a difference. Use my promo code Dr. Marvin Says to save money on any of the compression systems. That is definitely Dr. Marv approved. See, I'm torn because then it's like your low back.
It is, right? But it's a lower weight. Can you keep the mechanics? Can you keep the form while you're doing those things?
If you can, a 20 rep set will blow you up. And no, I'm not talking about JP and Dusty's race to 20 with 505 on a bar. We're talking about mere mortals. If your low back is strong enough, 20 rep bent over barbell rows will blow you up.
What about a supported T-bar? Well, because we're not, neither one of us are advocating to go in and do barbell squats, 20 reps, 25 reps to failure. So I just threw barbell reps out there as something to think about. But yeah, there is the vulnerability or the risk for the lower back. So if you're concerned about that, and even though I've had a history of lower back issues,
chest supported.
The barbell row or a T-bar row isn't even an issue if I'm locked in. It would be if I'm, pulling with my lower back. But if I'm in a position that I can sustain, okay, cool. That's not going to put my specific situation or my lower back in a vulnerable position. But yeah, you could do a supported. But again, even chest, same thing. What can you do with chest? Can you do dumbbell presses for 20, 25 reps? You may. And if you're stuck and you're not progressing, keep those
nothing to lose.
Keep those same exercises and just push those rep ranges up and see what happens. Might be surprised.
Yeah, I'll do 15 to 20 reps routinely. Now, a lot of it was just because of injuries, right? But it's if you've never done it, do it. So the most anticlimactic smash or pass
pretty
on
much.
The posit, I'm smashing higher reps. And if you've never done it, please try it.
Yeah, it's an absolute smash. So
awesome.
All right, let's transition into it's I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. Are you ready? Marv's prehab rehab rodeo roundup. Woohoo!
Yes.
What do you got today?
All right. We are going to talk about dry needles.
Nice.
So
big fan.
So So that I will put this in somebody's glute, or if they're large enough, their lat. Right.
Okay, that's a long one.
Yes. I have 3-inch needles. I have 4-inch needles. I have thicker ones for my really big powerlifter, strongman bodybuilders. And I have these for normal people. Oop, and it just dropped out.
Goes.
So
now
so
it's
there
stuck
it
in your
is.
Quad. Okay.
Yep, I know, right? Luckily it fell the other way. Yep. So there to there, and I will go up to there, putting that in somebody's glute. So dry needling. I liken it to my scalpel. I didn't say the other word, Skip. You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
With like shockwave therapy or my newbie E-stim or manual therapy being my hammer. So what the hell is dry needling? It emerged in the late 20th century, and it's using acupuncture needles, but we're not doing energy lines and stuff like that. We're going after trigger points. So myofascial trigger points to treat muscular pain and dysfunction. So how does sticking a needle in you work? So it'll normalize dysfunctional motor end plates. So fun fact, trigger points, knots and muscles that when you push on them are tender and even can refer pain elsewhere. You could have a palpable trigger point, and it's going to get a little morbid, and the person could pass away in decease. And if you immediately do a cadaver, there is not a knot in the muscle. We don't fully understand why they happened. We do know seems to be increased electrical activity it's called the motor unit, right? So where it meets the muscle. So the motor units we talked about, small to large, there seems to be excess neurotransmitters, in particular calcium and acetylcholine, and that's causing the muscle to knot up and it won't relax. So dry needling will impact the motor unit and change electrical activity to get it to relax. It'll reduce local and referred pain, and it does that by lowering or increasing pain thresholds, right? So arbitrary number, if you come to me and you've got tennis elbow and it takes 4 pounds of pressure to push before you cause pain, if I dry needle you, might go to 6 to 7 pounds. So I increased your pain threshold, which will decrease your pain signaling. It'll also directly decrease local inflammatory markers. In particular, it sounds like a 1980s rapper, Substance P is an actual thing. I'm assuming the P stands for pain. That'll start to pull under the surface with trigger points, and then it'll do other stuff. It's literally increases your local opioid cannabinoid system in the body. Now, dry needling will increase blood flow for 24 hours, which is really cool. If you had predator vision, if you dry needle somebody's low back and then into the glute for the next 24 hours, that same side leg is going to be bright yellow and orange because you're increasing blood flow. So that's going to help with recovery, right? And then washing nutrients, why it works really well. And we know how it's going to change how both your brain and your spinal cord perceive pain signals for the first 24 to 72 hours, which is pretty awesome. So all of that stuff will decrease muscle stiffness, improve elasticity, improve range of motion, and it'll actually help muscle force production. So what are the benefits that we see? Short-term pain relief. There was a study done on 48 bodybuilders, and they found, so it was actual bodybuilders, and they had a pretty decent competition history. It was awesome. Like they had to be competing for at least 5 years. They were all natural in the same class, but like that's pretty awesome because that doesn't happen often in studies.
Yeah, right.
Dry needling outperformed massage or stretching for low back pain. We know dry needling improves range of motion. It increases force output, both muscular endurance and just force output for up to 96 hours. With that said, one study found a actually temporary decrease in force output for the first 24 hours. What all that means is I typically do not like to needle somebody within 3 hours of them doing something intense, especially the working muscle. In a perfect world, they're not training that muscle for 24 hours. If they have to, they have to, right? If I'm at a sporting event, if I'm needling somebody, something went sideways and it's a Hail Mary just to get them through that day, right? So to keep that in mind. Now, and then it'll decrease injury risk in studies because it reduces the muscle tone, it improves muscle function, and it might improve something called muscle or joint position sense, knowing where your something is in space without looking. So if I have a better connection, you could respond quicker, right? What's really cool is then you could hook these needles up to a TENS unit and then use different frequencies to do different outcomes. Now the research,
yeah.
The research doesn't say high or low E-stim's better. Anecdotally, I find using different frequencies absolutely matters. So before I got my newbie, and some of them still prefer it, my crazy 925-pound raw squatting powerlifters, they come in the beginning of meet week and I needle both glutes and I hook them up to the TENS unit and they say they're stronger. I don't know what that's like to put that much on my back. So if they say they're stronger, they're going to do it. So I've got 2 really cool videos that to show. One of them is just a really cool visual to show how it'll release stuff. I might have shown it before. And the other is a recent video where I did dry needling to improve a bodybuilder's posing, because I will use dry needling like I talked about with Sean Clarita. I need to clarify. I did not treat Sean Clarita. We used him as an example of how everything gets bound up and how I use dry needling to impact that. So
I've never had 925 pounds on my back. I have given my wife a piggyback ride, and that's roughly half of that. She goes 4 and a quarter. Yeah. She doesn't listen, so I can take
I was like, yeah, you better. Yep.
She'll listen to this one, though, and be like, what?
Yeah, watch the one time.
Yeah.
Yep. So I just find this really cool. So I'm getting literally underneath her shoulder blade, between her rib cage and her shoulder blade, to get her rhomboids and her serratus posterior superior. And you talk about releasing a bound up muscle, you will actually be able to visually see there's going to be a finger on screen right there. So watch closely where that is, and it pops up overhead range of motion. So in case people missed it, one more time, I find that freaking cool, where literally, and she's laughing because I'm nerding out. Remember, I'm just a big nerd for this. And then here's another great guy. So we did before and after. So it was his first show. That's pretty damn decent conditioning for her first ever show. We did a bunch of dry needling, including his glutes with the E-stim. I had my newbie going on rest and recover, right? Because it was 2 weeks out from stage. So I will needle up to 2 weeks out. I did all my adjustments as normal. And then when he poses again, will dry needling make a difference for posing? I think the look on his face says it. So now watch his face when he reopens up. It's pretty hilarious. Boom. Yep. It can make a world of difference. The provider matters because if you know what you're doing, you could really hurt somebody. Fun fact, in Texas, you just need to be adequately trained and you could dry needle as a chiropractor. There is no specifics beyond that. That's a little alarming. Lungs and needles don't mix.
Oh, they don't?
Just no. Yeah. Fun fact. Right. Yep. Everybody Google pneumothorax. We don't want that. So you've got to be incredibly careful, especially upper body, right? So, up here, I am pinching onto muscle like you saw with the videos, right? It's in the whole time. I'm not leaving them be. If it's glutes, I'm not worried about lungs, so long as you're not like throwing a needle in a nerve or a main artery. Like, let's not throw a needle in the femoral artery. You could leave them in there and it's relatively safe. But I'm a huge fan of needling, but it has to be done by somebody who's competent because you could really mess somebody up. But if you can, I'll let you speak about your personal experience, how dry needling can be life-changing. Now, the research on dry needling is pretty terrible. Again, who's doing it? I could say I needle 30 to 40% of every person who walks through my door.
Well, I have a longtime friend who's a what is it, DPT?
Yep. Physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy.
Yeah. And so he pushed me and pushed me and pushed me because he was doing Graston and it was working relatively well, but I had to do it a lot. Like I had to do it frequently and it would work while I was having it done and consistently. And then when I wasn't, even a few weeks, and I was like, ugh, I got to get back at it. The dry needling with E-stim and then cupping with movement. He would follow it with cupping with movement. And quite frankly, I don't, if anybody listening hasn't had either one of those done, believe me when I say that with the E-stim is the TENS unit, right? And so that is pretty okay. It's pretty chill. Like you're just sitting there. It's no big deal. Cupping with movement, and this is a gross understatement. It
brutal.
Sucks bad.
It's brutal.
It just feels like your skin is going to rip off. It's just horrible, horrible stuff. I hated it, but I kept doing it because it was working so well.
Yep.
So that's my I can't even get it out. Nate Bargatze voice. It just worked so well when he talked about pancakes in his stand-up. Anyway.
Yeah. Hey, good reference. Yeah.
Great comedian. But anyway, my situation was my right shoulder blade. Let's not get too specific here, but the right shoulder blade, right scapula doesn't want to open up as much as the left. And it's enough that visually it's ugly. And when that happens, not only from a visual standpoint is it an issue, but if it's not wanting to have that same, it's bound up, then there are other things on that side from chest movements to obvious back movements, but shoulder movements that are being offset from that imbalance. So it's just a bad idea from a potential injury standpoint, but it's also a bad idea when you get on stage, which is what we saw with Sean and why you used him as an example of, man, at that level, and he knows it, obviously. So that it matters from an aesthetic, from a symmetrical standpoint. We talk about symmetry in bodybuilding when really what we're talking about is aesthetics. We refer to symmetry as what symmetry should be. What it should be by definition is the same, like a duplicate left to right. That's not like at some point that's what it meant in our industry, in the bodybuilding industry, but it just literally became, oh, you're talking about aesthetics, how pretty, that's not what it is. So we want that symmetry, that textbook definition of symmetry, so that the left and right leg looks as close. And they're never the same, for what it's worth. They're never the same. There are a lot of pros with an arm an inch bigger than the other one. But because they're not right next to each other, you're not going to notice it as much as unless it gets into the back, especially closer it gets to the spine and, pectoral muscles, things like that. A lot of pros, even more so than an art, will have a deltoid bigger than the other, but you're not going to notice that. It takes a really trained eye to be able to see the difference. These are the things that, and when I do those, when I have the e-stim done, the cupping with movement and the dry needling with e-stim, it's just a game changer. And here's the caveat. It's different than what you do in the sense that he wants me to go in. He likes to do that, like have that session on my way to the gym to train back. And I love it. It's for me, just from feeling. Now I haven't done it any other way, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but I will tell you everything from the first warm-up set to my working sets, everything feels the same. Where typically, if I'm not having that work done, it's going to take me a minute to get everything warmed up and to get arguably to activate and get those muscles working around the scapula to get them to feel loose so that everything feels even left to right.
Because what are the two biggest predictors of injury? Previous injuries, number one. Asymmetry is number two. Now, we are never going to be perfectly symmetrical aesthetically, range of motion. I want to limit your right hip from being 5 times as tight as your left hip, right? That's what you want to do. Where a little bit of asymmetry is fine, but we don't want this gross amount. And dry needling is one of the quickest things, and the effects are a lot longer lasting. I agree with you. The instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization, the scraping, grasp, whatever word you want to use, it helps, but the results are kind of temporary. Like it can do initial, but yeah, like you experience, you got to do it a lot, right?
Now, what about
just
manual?
same. So yeah, same stuff. So everybody responds differently, but I have hundreds of case examples of I had neck pain for 5 years on one dry needling session, took it away forever.
Well, I know that the dry needling is far more tolerable than manual trigger point.
So I would choose a needle in my armpit, as wild as that sounds, every single day of the week and twice on Sundays, then somebody sticking their thumb in there and moving me around. In fact, most people gravitate towards the needling, and most people will be hesitant. And then we try other stuff and they're like, okay, let's try it.
Right.
They're super, and they come back and they go, so I didn't like it getting done, but can we do that again? Because the results are amazing. Right. Yeah. And a lot of people are needle phobic, which is totally fine. I don't force anything, but if somebody responds well to dry needling, it's remarkable. But again, you got to be trained and you got to be doing it safely. And please don't dry needle yourself. One guy I was helping was needling himself, and I'm like, just stop. And he was asking me, how do I do this? I'm like, I am not giving you that answer. So do not do it yourself. You need to be trained. You need to be a medical professional.
Manual trigger point work made me nauseous. Yes. Not from an anxiety standpoint.
No, if you do it correctly, yes, it will. Yeah. And so the needling, it lasts longer. It's way quicker. It's 5 to 10 seconds of a needle being in oftentimes, especially near the lung field. You're not going to leave them in and let them cook, right? The standard for letting a needle cook is 15 minutes in areas that is safe to do so. But
same mine cook. I think I'm on, I want to say 10 to 12 minutes with the stimulus and then going into the cupping with movement. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But it's awesome, but just make sure you're getting it done well. Let's do a quick update of me, and then you give us your number one donut spot.
Yep.
So quick update. I've done 4 gym sessions. They've all been glorious. I am doing things I haven't done since 2020. Skip's seen a couple videos. So on screen, we have me dumbbell pressing for the first time since 2020, or maybe 2021. I sent it to my old training partner the last time I dumbbell pressed, and he's like, wait, when is this? So he was happy. I have done a almost full stretch Dante high pull. I've been greatly reduced range of motion forever. Awesome. I have overhead pressed without pain for the first time in 4 years. The knee is still giving me some issues. The wrist is still giving me some issues, but I'm back to some leg training, right? So reverse V squat and leg press. I did a couple back squats in my office before I felt comfortable going back to a gym. Oh my God, my low back was wrecked for a couple days. So yeah, I'm not going to be putting a bar in my back anytime soon. I'm so deconditioned for that. Woke up 197 pounds fasted today, which I'm pretty stoked on, because about a month ago I was 188 and 5 weeks ago I was 181. On screen, it's posing mirror, smoke and mirror. So it's posing room stuff, but that's where my physique is right now. Not half bad. I'm pretty damn happy with it. I look
Well, the
pretty
progress is
respectable to
pretty
pump.
impressive.
Yes,
And that's what
exactly.
we need. You know, people need to
Yep.
stay focused on, because someone could go, "Oh, you weigh 190." You know what?
Yeah.
It's not about that
Correct.
at this point. You're coming
Mm-hmm.
back from such a long layoff
Mm-hmm.
and so many issues that, I mean, arguably, without the treatment that you had, you wouldn't be anywhere near
Nope.
this.
No, I would be getting, I am pretty damn sure I'm canceling surgery next month. Very, very, very excited. If anybody has questions about where I went for stem cells, let me know. Pennies on the dollar. I'm still not quite sure why she does it that way, but I ain't going to complain. So if you're interested, reach out to me and I'll put you in touch.
Sounds good. Time for my cheat meal review. And it's the
Yes,
number one
I'm
spot.
ready. I'm ready.
Donuts. And it's taken a while. We had the Dusty interview, so
Yep.
I didn't want to put that in there. I wanted to take advantage of having Dusty on. So I have to go backwards. It's my top 5. I have the number 1 spot today that I need to give away. Number 5, Krispy Kreme. It's the old standby. You can talk about it and go, "Oh, that's not very good donut." Yeah, it is. It's definitely top 5. May not be
Yeah.
your go-to, but it's good. Lamar's Donuts. I mean, arguably, they've been around for a long time too. It's an old. I mean, you can count on them. Be great donuts. Better variety than Krispy Kreme. Not as common. Still franchise. They're all over
Yeah,
the place.
I've
But
never heard of one.
I think I've only had them 3 times.
Okay.
But you were probably going to pass a Krispy Kreme before you get to a Lamar's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Duck Donuts, another franchise again. And as we get closer to the top, to the number 1 spot, I'll admit, even though the franchise are still available everywhere, it's not everywhere, but you know, they're franchise.
Mhm.
There will be less options
Okay.
as you
Yep.
get towards the top. Made to order and customizable. So if you want something
Mm.
specific, they will do that
Oh,
for you.
whoa, I've never heard of that. Is that
Huge
common?
selection. No, it's not. No.
Yeah, I was like,
But
I've
a
never heard
huge
of that.
selection of flavors. I mean,
Wow.
it's pretty crazy, and they are very good.
Are
Number
they on
2.
Gold Belly? Are they on Gold Belly?
You
Do
know
you
what?
know?
I should know that, but I don't. They could
I
be.
will look real quick.
Gold Belly they usually
Yep.
have, and if it's not Duck Donuts, it might be Lamar's that you could get on Gold Belly.
Let's see.
Number 2 is Shipley, though. Not just in Texas. A lot of people in Texas think
That
it's
is
only
an
a Texas thing.
institution here.
Yep, I've heard that. 14 states, kolaches. Where does that come from? Cheese, kolaches. Some of them are filled with cheese, like a cheese. It's like kind of like a pastry filled with cheese, but they're donuts filled with cheese, and it's originally a Czech pastry, but very good. Number 1, even though I'm going to get done with the number 1 spot, it's a standalone. I don't think the other 4 are anywhere near on level. And people who know me, who have come into town, and whether it's West Palm or we've gone to Miami, the original salty donut is the number 1. The original salty donut was in, and still is, in Wynwood, Miami. And it's kind of like a gentrified art district. So that's where these trendy hipster type places, and that's what it is, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
They are, I mean, we ordered a dozen. I actually ordered 2 dozen, but a dozen donuts is $52. So they're not
Holy
messing around. We're
shit.
talking, $5 donuts.
Yeah.
But artesian gourmet, I mean, it doesn't get any more gourmet than that. They are limited with their flavors, I'll admit. They're limited to maybe like 7, maybe 8 each month. And then they'll change a couple of them. They'll have a couple that will be the kind of like their special for the month. It might be related to the holidays. You can certainly count on a pumpkin something, some type of pumpkin flavor around, Halloween and into November. And then they'll do a theme for everything. Mother's Day, Father's Day, that sort of thing. Gourmet artesian donuts, they're brioche. They're incredible. You're going to eat 1 or 2 of them. If I'm going crazy and I just want to make a slob out of myself, I might get 3, and anything after that, I'm forcing a really bad situation.
Unfortunately, none of those are on Gold Belly.
Okay.
Boo.
Fair enough. But that is the number 1 spot. Salty donut, and the rest of them, they're
Interesting.
down here.
Well,
Now, some
whenever
people
I
may say,
eventually visit you, we'll have to go. because I eat a donut once every 7 years.
Yeah, you're not going to be very fun to hang out with, Marv. Maybe other than riding in your car, but that's gonna that's you
no.
know.
I'm gonna convert you to the metronome. You're gonna start log booking.
It's gonna be American muscle cars instead of imports.
Yeah.
I know.
All right, from your client Devin, because he's Degro, correct?
You know what? Is it Devin or is it Devon? Here's
That
the
I
thing.
don't know.
He's gonna laugh because
He's
I
your
always have
client.
called him. I know, right? I've always called him Devin. He's been in town a couple times and stuff. We've gone to the Olympia, and then I'm like, I heard one of my other clients who met him call him Devon, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be really bad if I have been calling him Devin for all the. Of course, maybe he gets that. He's like, just whatever.
I totally did that in the office. And I was like, wait, what? I've been saying your name wrong the whole time. She's like, yeah, but it's fine. I'm like, no, tell me. Like, because it's a different pronunciation. She's like, nobody gets it right. I'm like, well, I called you that in your video when you signed my wall. Luckily, she told me, so I edited that out. Because otherwise people would be, what an asshole. He doesn't even know how to pronounce his patient's name right.
You said cannabinoid earlier. I'm like, isn't that cannabinoid? But frustrated, hypertrophy, whatever.
Here we go. While we get back to it, it's going off the rails.
Yeah.
Question or topic: benefits of smasher pass isometric loading. Pretty interesting because we don't think about isos for bodybuilding. So, real quickly, 5 key benefits of isometric loading for bodybuilding: muscle hypertrophy. We know it can grow muscle, especially when performed at longer lengths, with sufficient intensity in volume.
Okay, but define isometric loading so that, because I'm not
even
sure.
So you are flexing it and nothing is happening. So you are just resisting away.
The old hands in the doorway, Charles Atlas
stuff
type
like
thing.
That.
Okay, all right. So
this is just a fun fact. The proximal quad, right? If I want to be smart, your rec fem, your upper quad. Isometrics in longer length positions built more muscle than something called an isotonic full range of motion training. Isotonic, use a fancy machine. It's continuous tension and you're moving the whole time. You need fancy machines for that. They're hard to find, but it was interesting. An isometric, just figure out how to load the quad, did way better than a fancy machine. So I use isometrics for bodybuilding, and there's a couple other benefits, but real quickly, I use isometrics to help somebody build mind-muscle connection in a lagging body part, right? You can't connect to your chest. You're going to do some isometric. I have my chest deducting shrug thing that I like so much, but you can't feel a muscle. You're going to do a bunch of isometrics, and you might have to flex your bicep for 30, 45 seconds till it starts to fire and cramp. Boom. You can't connect to a muscle. Put it in its most shortened position. You could Google its action. Biceps, like we talked about, super complicated, right? Yep, like we talked about with Dusty. So do that. Also, an advanced technique, your strength in, so I'm doing a bicep curl. This is the positive or the concentric, right? So I'm shortening the muscle. Hopefully people know this. Negatives, eccentric, I'm lengthening it. I am weakest in the concentric. So when you can't get any other rips, advanced hypertrophy, squeeze and hold that as an isometric because you're stronger in isometrics than you are concentric. So you're weakest in the concentric, then isometric, you're strongest in the eccentric or the negative. So when you know it's your last rep, you're hitting failure or you're on RIR or whatever, man, flex that muscle on your next chest press, squeeze like hell for 10 seconds, and then finish the set. You could bring the muscle out a little bit more. What's in a rehab standpoint, I'm about to lay gold. This should have been a rehab. You will strength gain 10 degrees either side of the joint angle. So say you are having front of the shoulder pain on a bench press. Come down. Okay, that's where the pain is. Back off 5 degrees and hold an isometric. So you're out of the pain because you backed off 5 degrees, but you're actually training into the pain. So you could start to dramatically increase your pain-free range of motion.
Yeah.
So find the pain point, back off 5 degrees, do your isometrics there. You will start building up strength in the range of motion that was previously painful. That is a gem. Real quickly, I use isometrics for my athlete programs because we know that it increased neuromuscular activation for explosive movements afterwards, right? So Anybody who plays beer league softball, do like an isometric. If you want to get really fancy, this would actually work. I wonder if anybody do it. Figure out a way to do like trap bar isometrics in the dugout right before you go up to bat, and then go up to bat. If you do an isometric and you're not moving, but you're firing everything, you're going to increase your nervous system. So you'll be quicker with explosion. And then it has less training fatigue than full range of motion training. Duh. But again, super helpful. Like in my scenario, you better believe I've been doing isometrics at the beginning of every workout. Why? Because my contractions are terrible compared to what they used to be. I swear to God, Skip, I swear I know how to fire my quad in a leg movement. At one point, I knew how to fire them. It doesn't feel like anything is working right now. So I'm doing a lot of isometrics. And then, yes, we do know, especially with limited mobility or hurt, they flat out are great for injury prevention and rehab. But isometrics, mind to muscle connection for lagging body parts, sneaky way to increase strength, and then you can start increasing your range of motion in a rehab standpoint and be safe.
I'm using my own version of an isometric contraction during my openers by simply focusing or giving more attention to the contracted or peak contracted position.
So
it's not an isometric, but
no, but are you
it is a pause.
Okay,
it is a
yeah.
pause.
So you're still, I mean, that technically is, even if it's like a 2 or 3 count.
I'm still using the full range of motion though, where
like,
isometric typically isn't going to be.
If you can't feel a muscle, I think we've talked about this, like say on a pec deck, you've never felt your chest. So long as your shoulders are healthy, you're going to pause in the stretch for 2 seconds because you're going to take the elastic recoil out. Ooh, that was my shoulder popping.
I heard
you're going to come here. Yeah. But like, Skip, look at this.
Yeah.
Guys, this is fucking wild. Like 2 out of 10 pain. I'll live with 2 out of 10 for the rest of my life happily. But okay, take the elastic recoil out. I got excited. Contract. Now squeeze like hell for 2 to 5 seconds in the shorten, and then repeat the process.
That's a lot of my openers. Whether it be a tricep press down, whether it be a pec deck fly, cable fly, even for back, I will hold that contracted position. It's essentially just making sure that everything is firing evenly, strong contractions. And that's why I'm not terribly focused on the amount of weight that I'm using, even though I will work up as I warm up. But that's primarily what I'm trying to do with my openers, and then move in to the growth stuff.
And your ability to get a muscle fully shortened decreases as we fatigue. So it makes sense also from the optimal meathead biomechanics science-based world to do your pauses in the contracted early when you have the ability to do so.
And I didn't even check for a study on that. I know that sounds so bizarre in this time.
I know, right?
This day and age.
Correct.
But
so
it is what it is.
And I do have studies to back up everything I said, but if folks want them, I'll send them to you. Let's give Chris a break. Because he's probably like, God, how many studies this week?
Yeah, exactly.
Good Lord. But we could back everything up. But again, it's all 3 things of the stool, and we're out.
We got to get to getting. Skip and Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't like the show, pretend you did. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. It'll sound a little something like this. And you can hit the hype button. I'm not sure what that sounds like, but hit it anyway. We've had a handful already, so that's cool. I appreciate you guys doing that.
No idea.
Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. You can reach out to Dr. Marv at theeducatedmeathead.com, and you can reach out to me at teamskip.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click on this link